Hi everyone. So I had some technical difficulties, but I am Christy Lee Badbrad, and this is my Christmas in July celebration. So I am going to start reading. I have two books that I've written, two Christmas books that I've written, and my brother wrote one. And then there's going to be a surprise guest. So without further ado, here we go. This is, gotta keep it festive, scarf. Okay. So this is the Christmas break. I pressed play on a mix I created of soul with that 50s waltz down beat on many of the tracks. These types of songs have stood the test of time for good reason, being both romantic and nostalgic. This music never fails to comfort me, probably because these are the kind of songs my mom would play as well. Once I have the music set, I take a seat at my sewing table by the tree. I have costumes to make today for the festival performance. Shelby has the music all set for the children, and there are a few high school students that are participating as well. The little ones, though, do all the orchestrated songs together as a group, and they are the ones I'm designing the costumes for. Zach at the tree farm is all set for Santa, but I also have to fix a few buttons on his suit. The biggest task every year, though, will always be imagining the children's costumes, which I make new every year. I'm following through with the light blue motif. All the girls will be wearing sequin long-sleeve dresses with white faux fur around the collar, white stockings, and then whatever boots the parents can supply for their child. But I mentioned how the lighter shades would go better with the dresses. The boys will be wearing light blue suits that match the girls with a white dress shirt underneath and sequin dark blue bow ties. I had all the children in for a fitting last week. That was a crazy scene. All the boys and girls were running around, posing silly by the Christmas tree, parents pulling out their child's name a dozen times. I now have Travis stuck in my head in particular, a precocious brown-haired 6-year-old boy with lots of freckles. Adorable boy, but he had so much energy. I laughed just thinking about it. Sammy came in with his mom, but he insisted on being last because he wanted to be my special helper. How sweet is that? With Sammy handing me the measuring tape and holding it where I told him, we were able to get all the children's sizes down rather quickly. I'm sewing the sequins on the girls' dresses right now, which is tedious work, but not too mind-consuming, since I've done this for many years now. It doesn't take long at all for my thoughts to begin wandering with the music. If Nicole is holding on this tight to Liam, I think he's probably going to stay with her. As for me, I've never felt with anyone else anything close to what I felt with him. That's one of the many reasons I haven't been able to move on. Why would God fill your heart with that kind of connection if it wasn't meant to last? Ow! I poked myself with a needle. God is definitely not allowing me to sink into my fears, it seems. Something seems to always happen to cut into these thoughts and direct my attention to the beauty around me. My eyes go to the glowing white lights on the tree, reflecting on the top of red plants that were given out of such true love and thoughtfulness. I think about Eric, my best friend, Tiff, who I've known for most of my life, this town I get to be an active member of, and how lucky I am to have this business doing what I love. Everything is going to be okay with this amount of love in my world. I remind myself of this as I finish the sequins on the first dress. So I hope you enjoyed that little excerpt from the Christmas break. Hello, Cousin Linda. And now I'm going to move on to my brother's book, A Westhampton Beach Christmas by Robert Badbrad. As the morning approached, the temperature was beginning to drop. Both Danny and Marcos could feel this change. They walked just a bit closer together, trying to stay warm, while laughing and talking about their experiences to date. The street lamps were coming on, and it paired wonderfully with the warm glow of lighting from the shops and businesses along Main Street. Would you care for a hot chocolate, Danny? If there was ever a night for it, this would be it, asked Marcos suddenly as they were nearly back to where the car was parked. Danny's eyes opened wide in a sense of happy surprise. I would love some hot chocolate tonight. It's the first snowfall of the season, and what better way to celebrate it? I know just the place. Danny led Marcos to a place with a selection of cakes, pastries, and of course hot chocolate on the menu. However, this was not just everyday hot chocolate. Instead, it was an upscale version made from fine European Belgian hot chocolate and created at a consistency that gave it a much smoother and sweeter finish than anything out of a can or packet. This was then paired with a selection of choices for customizing the hot chocolate. There was the usual whip available, but also a variety of chocolate, star anise, peppermint, and cinnamon garnishes. "This is delicious," said Marcos, taking a sip. "See, I told you this place was good," laughed Danny. She continued, "I have one other thing to show you before we head back." They left the shop and walked down to the village green. The Christmas tree was lit, and it was now dark. They took a seat together on a nearby bench near the gazebo with their hot chocolate. Danny looked at the tree reflectively. "I sincerely do like this time of year. There's something hopeful and optimistic about it." Marcos took a sip of his drink. "I agree. If I were in New York City right now, I would have missed all of this. There's the Rockefeller tree and all of that, but this is more peaceful." He paused for a moment. "It's more special, too. If I had been in there, I would have been one of thousands looking at a lighted Christmas tree, but not actually sharing that moment with anyone. In New York City, especially during this time of year in Midtown, you can feel anonymous. It's the kind of place where you realize just how many people there are in the world because you yourself become lost in the endless crowds. Here, you feel like an individual. You feel as though you count and that you matter in some way." Danny tightened the lid on her cup with a gloved hand. "I think there's a lot of truth in that. I couldn't live in there. I don't like feeling completely anonymous or another number. People know me here. I'm recognized for what I do, and for me that's important. I have a lot of ties here." Marcos nodded. "I think that's important for everyone and something that is lacking today. People don't value each other." Danny nodded her head in agreement. "I like that we're around the same age and can acknowledge something like that. It takes some time in this world to come to that kind of conclusion." They both sat together in the silence and peaceful quiet of the lights from the large lit-up Christmas tree on the snowy village green, drinking the hot chocolate. Each was lost in what seemed to be their own personal reflections on a year that would soon be in the past. It was quiet and the sky was dark here at night. Yes, there was the rumble of the snowplow, the occasional car, and the sound of people talking, including others who had come to see the tree and menorah on the village green. However, it was significantly different from how Marcos remembered and knew the Christmas season to be back in the city. Danny finished her coffee and then pulled an object out of her coat pocket. It was wrapped in silver paper. "I purchased something for you to help you get your Hamptons Christmas season started." Marcos was surprised. He took the small package in his hands and began to unwrap the bright silver paper. The object inside was a ship's wheel. It had a compass lodged in the center of the decoration and a gold string for hanging it on the tree. Marcos didn't know how to respond to this incredibly thoughtful gesture. "Danny, this is absolutely perfect. I don't even know what to say." Danny looked at the wheel in Marcos's hand. "This will encourage you to continue to steer your own course and to follow your own direction going forward. You know what's best for you, best for your ship and for your voyage." Marcos's eyes were fixed on the beautiful object in his hands and the very special meaning that Danny had now assigned to it. "We barely know each other, and yet I already feel as though you know more about me than most of the people," replied Marcos. Danny smiled. "I feel the same." She continued, "You'll remember your time out here for years to come whenever you look at your Christmas tree and see the ship's wheel. It won't matter what your coordinates are or where you are at that time in your life. It will always bring you back to being this age and having hot chocolate with a stranger who became a friend. You can always come back to this Christmas tree, this moment, and this bench again just by looking at this decoration on your tree." Marcos was speechless. It was all so meaningful and unexpected. "Danny," he said, "I've learned so much from you already. You taught me about the yen. No, I can't say it. It's my brother's word, French word. Anyway, I'm going to just skip over that. Different types of croissants. And that more marbled cuts will be tastier at restaurants. Now, I feel like you've even helped provide me with guidance for the path ahead in my own life with this beautiful Christmas ornament. It just feels like when I'm spending time with you that I'm learning more than any college class could ever offer." Tanny grinned. "And it'll be far more useful in real life." They They hugged, but not like it had been when they had greeted each other at the bistro earlier that morning. No, this held something else. This time, there was a distinct indication that both Danny and Marcos felt something special developing toward each other. It remained to be seen where their journey would take them from that bench at night on the snowy Westhampton Beach Village green in front of the Christmas tree. So that is Westhampton Beach Christmas by Robert Baverat. And now I am going to read an excerpt from A Christmas Heart, and then it'll be time for my surprise guest. Chapter 2. Chapter 10, not Chapter 2. So where'd you go? Call me. I miss you. Quinn had a feeling she knew who it was, but unlike her days growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, she no longer memorized phone numbers. She could still recite Abigail's childhood home number, but couldn't even remember her own cell phone digits. That's why she even installed herself as a contact. It may seem ridiculous, but it was true. And once she deleted a phone number from her phone, it was deleted from her life, unless it spurred itself temporarily back into existence like this one had. Luckily, Quinn had started keeping a yearly list of phone numbers and addresses in her planner. She hopped out of her bed and went into her black tote bag. She tossed the book on her bed and climbed back in, flipping to the end and running her finger down the list of numbers. The match was Andrew, with a heart next to his name. She shook her head. After all this time, he's only now wondering what happened to me? Her annoyance flared up. She could just ignore him, but it bugged her to do that to another person, no matter how they hurt her. She also wasn't into games, waiting to respond. There were times when maybe she should have slept on it before responding to someone, but once again, for better or worse, she had her own style, and she liked to confront things head on. I'm home and busy at my new job. I wish you all the best. Take care, Quinn. She typed and then turned off her phone. She couldn't understand how certain people could pretend like nothing happened, like they would somehow get away with it if they didn't acknowledge it. Quinn was done with Andrew. At first, the betrayal stung, and if she was candid, she was more upset with herself for keeping the relationship going for as long as she did. There were attributes of his that were opposite her. Some actions bothered her that went beyond simply being different people. Most of all, she never felt adored. She always felt as if she was coming on to him. He did not reciprocate, and that wore on her. She made herself feel better by blaming the timing. He came in right when she had lost her parents and had first moved to New York City. In an effort to heal and move forward, she opened herself up to everything new. That was Andrew. He was new. He was a driven, suit-wearing, social climbing kind of guy, and the complete opposite from the guy she had known before. Tommy felt more like the kind of man her father was. Tommy seemed to be more linked to the kind of people she was encouraged to be around, growing up here in Berrywood. It was time to move forward with her heart and soul firm in who she was. Quinn curled on her side and went off to sleep with this acknowledgement. She had a bright new day and future that she was building from what her Christmas heart was calling her to do. So I hope you enjoyed this reading. And now I'm going to introduce my special guest, who has a story of her own called No Place Like Home. Without further ado, here is my mother, Cheryl Baverat.
Hello, everybody. What a pleasure. Makes me so happy, and I feel so honored to be part of Christy Lee's Christmas in July book reading. I've written a story, and it's called, as Christy mentioned, No Place Like Home. Noni and Fritz lived in a beautiful little stone hovel with a thatched roof and lots of woods, evergreen and other varieties of trees around them. A frequently traveled cobblestone path led to their rounded doorway, and beautiful flowers grew round about, flourishing in the springtime. There were the bleeding heart plants with their velvet to the touch hearts of vivid pink, the bright yellow daffodils, multicolored pansies symbolizing remembrance, peonies, mums galore. Their surroundings were a movable feast of bursting colors in their seasons. Noni and Fritz's son, Dobus, and daughter-in-law Petra, lived nearby, and they had 2 children, a boy named Bela, tall with a ruddy complexion, sandy-colored hair, and brown eyes like his father, and a girl named Emma, tall and lean, with a fair complexion, blonde eyes, and blue eyes like her mother. Bela was 12, and Emma was 8. They were adored by their grandparents, Noni, who they called Anya, and Fritz, who they called Abba. Bela and Emma visited them every day. They loved sledding down from the mountain back to the valley below in wintertime. Then, in the springtime, they would pick Noni's favorite lilies of the valley and bring them to her to place in a vase on her kitchen table. They loved taking long hikes with their grandfather Fritz in the winter, spring, summer, and fall. They found so much to talk about, like school, music lessons, nature, animals, play, hobbies. They would, if free, to roam and converse all day, never refrain from these cherished times. The winter season was now upon the town of Gnomeville, and Noni and Fritz were visibly ecstatic with preparations for the Christmas season. "This is my most favorite time of the year," Noni explained, as she clapped her tiny hands together and began to tap her feet in her floral-designed wooden clogs. Fritz grabbed her tiny hands with his short but muscular, work-worn ones and twirled her around the kitchen in a little dance. "Ooh, Fritz, that was fun. I do love to dance. But now snip-snap, there is much work to be accomplished, for tomorrow is Christmas Eve and our annual extravaganza. I love all the company and decorations. I will go out and chop the wood for the fire to warm our guests, and I will bring in our Christmas fir tree to decorate with Dobus, Petra, Bela, and Emma this evening," Fritz assured Noni. "Will you smoke the ham for our dinner together this evening?" Noni inquired. "Oh yes, thank you for the reminder." Noni and Fritz had been decorating and cooking for over a week now, preparing for their grand Christmas Eve celebration. Every year they would invite their family and all the neighbors to join them for good, hearty, food galore, festive music, singing and dancing. Whoever could not enter because of overcrowding, late arrival, or someone was just too tall to enter inside through their door, would gather around outside in their heavy coats, hats, scarves, gloves, and boots. "I will prepare the big pot of my famous Spätzle soup, Fritz, another big pot of potato and leek soup, which is a favorite of Bela and Emma's. And leave the turkey and cranberry stuffing that we all love so much to you." "Good enough. That should take care of everything." "Oh, and don't forget your fresh out-of-the-oven homemade potato bread," announced Fritz as he scampered out the door. "Thanks for the reminder," Noni called after him, and he waved his hand in response. They worked until approximately 4 o'clock. Then Dobus, Petra, Bela, and Emma came in. Bela and Emma brandishing their fiddles, which they would be practicing tonight for the Christmas Eve celebration tomorrow. Dinner was ready and set on the table. Smoked honey ham and yams would be the dinner tonight. "Look, Anya, Noni," shouted Bela as the family decorated the tree. "I made this candy cane in first grade." "Look, Abba Fritz," shouted Emma. "I made this glowing sparkly candle." When the tree had been decorated, Emma and Bela proceeded to play a couple of songs on their fiddles, and the family clapped and sang along. Tomorrow was another day, an extra special day, and now it was time for Dobus, Petra, Bela, and Emma to walk home to sleep until the next day. Gnomeville was like a beautiful fantasy land high up in the mountains. It was a picture out of a children's storybook. Noni and Fritz Oberstadt's hovel was situated in the valley below. Gentle deer grazed there in the valley, and the mountain goats inhabited the mountains. They knew they were safe with Noni and Fritz, who would always feed them and talk to them. The Praise Church of Gnomeville was a beautiful church with wooden pews and colorful colorful stained glass windows. This time of year there was a lovely and simply decorated Christmas tree, a manger at the altar, an angelic star hanging from the ceiling above over the manger. The lilting voices of the gnome-filled choir would echo through the windows out onto the street. Fritz conducted the choir, and Noni played the organ. It was 3 o'clock Christmas Eve, and the company were beginning to arrive. Bela and Emma were springing off their feet, jumping up and down with the anticipation. They loved company and looked forward to this celebration. Fritz and Noni ran in and out, enthusiastically serving and chatting with everyone. Everyone ate, drank, sang, and danced into the evening. Close to 10 o'clock, everyone would meet again, after they had taken a brief hour rest in between, and walked together to Praise Church in the Valley for the candlelight service. It was such a feeling of community and warmth to see families and friends, young and old, gathered together. After the passing of the candlelight from person to person and singing of Silent Night, Emma and Bela were looking forward to Christmas Eve adventures with Grandfather. Emma and Bela loved taking long walks with their grandfather Fritz, but Christmas time was their absolute favorite, when after the Christmas Eve service at Praise Church, he would take them sleigh riding through the white and drifting snow. Then, in anticipation of the arrival of Santa Claus, their heads laid on their fluffy goose-feathered pillows, and they dreamed of early morning surprises. The bayberry candles were alight, a tradition of good health and prosperity in the new year to come. All of a sudden, there were flashes of what looked like lightning. The candles were flickering, and a thunderous sound that shook the hovel of Noni and Fritz. Bela and Emma had slept over at their grandparents' home because of the extremely late hour of their return from the sleigh ride. Dobus and Petra were due to arrive early the next morning for sharing presents from Santa. Noni and Fritz were awakened. Bela and Emma awakened, frightened and shivering in their slippers as they came running out to their grandparents. "Anya, Noni, Papa Fritz, we are so scared," they exclaimed in fear. "What are those awful loud noises and flashes in the sky? Who was shaking the door?" "Don't fear, children," Grandfather Fritz advised. Grandmother Noni hugged the children closely to her. Noni then told Bela and Emma to remain with their grandfather while she ran to all the windows, blowing out the candles. Fritz checked to see that the door was still locked and bolted. The children followed close beside him. Fritz called Dobus and Petra to inquire that they were safe. "Are you two all right?" he asked when Dobus picked up the phone. "Yes, we are all right. Are the children safe?" "Yes," answered Fritz. "They're right here beside me. Lights are coming on all over Gnomeville. I don't think this is just a rainstorm." Dobus commented that it must be the Farkas trolls making their yearly return to try and take over Gnomeville. "It is entirely possible," Fritz stated with unquestionable certainty. "They have been doing this every year now since we settled here with Pastor Olaf Schmecken. They have come on attack every year at Christmas. We always came out banging all our pots and pans and running after them, chasing them out of Gnomeville. It seemed always like more of a game to them, but now it looks like they're crazy serious from the alarming noises of their approach this time. After all, this land was always wilderness, where the Farkas trolls would just wander throughout the wilderness at will, living like the wolves. They resent us being here and prowl like wolves to try and drive us out." Bela and Emma grew very tired. They fell back asleep on the sofa with their Papa Fritz. Fritz encouraged them back to bed. Anya and Noni stayed with the children while Fritz joined the men of the church after donning his warm outerwear as they walked together returning to Praise Church. Pastor Olaf Schmecken, with furrowed brows and wrinkles of worrisome fear, called out to the community. "We have been forewarned and unfortunately paid no heed. Gnomeville is about to be taken over by the Farkas trolls. This is only the beginning. They have threatened our homes, community, lives, traditions. We must band together now more than ever to stand up against them and protect each other." The sounds we heard were their thunderous stamping and shaking the doors trying to break in. We are gnomes, and we are strong. We can stand firm with our faith and traditions. We can say no. Either they follow our rules or they go. There is strength in unity. What say all of you? All in all for one and one for all. What do we do? What is the plan? The crowd asked enthusiastically. Pastor Olaf Schmecken spoke in his booming voice. We face off with them in the streets of Gnomeville. We go out there together right now and call them out. They have two choices, and we tell them so. Join us and follow the rules of our community, or we'll do what is necessary to drive you out. Thunderous applause greeted Pastor Olaf's suggestion, and everyone moved to the streets together. They called out to the Farkas, who came clomping and snorting, but the gnomes held strong and formed their lines of defense. The Farkas leader looked shocked as the gnome crowd gathered there. He did not anticipate this strong reaction. The pastor stepped forward and announced out loud the two choices. Pastor Olaf put out his hand and spoke. Are you with us, or do you stay against us? What is your decision? We are ready and prepared, either way. The Farkas trolls huddled together, and after a great deal of grumbling, the leader came back. He stared into the eyes of Pastor Olaf and said, we will join and follow the rules, only if there is an equal division of the land and equal respect. We follow your rules on your land, and you follow our rules on our land. The pastor put out his hand once more. The Farkas troll leader started as if to shake it, then raised it up to take it away. Pastor Olaf spoke the words loudly and emphatically to his community. All right, then. And as he did, the Farkas troll leader grunted, grabbed his hand, and shook it. The Gnomeville community cheered as it was proven the might of the Farkas trolls did not override the right of the Gnomeville community. And in unity of the community, there was strength. The families of Gnomeville returned to their homes peacefully, where they shared their presents with each other, gathered around their Christmas trees and firesides. Delbus and Petra were much relieved to know that Emma and Bela, along with their grandparents, Noni and Fritz, were safe, and that hopefully all would remain peaceful in Gnomeville. The Gnomeville community members had agreed with the Farkas trolls to meet at Grace Church after Christmas to subdivide the community, giving the Farkas trolls their own area to build homes. They would have their leader continue to represent their concerns at town meetings. The gnomes and Farkas trolls would coexist in and share shopping and amusement areas within the community. The community would be known as Willkommen Town, the town where gnomes, Farkas trolls, and others could coexist in peace. Willkommen meaning welcome. Bela and Emma were both very happy with their new skates on Christmas morning. Grandfather Fritz loved to read mysteries especially, and Delbus and Petra, along with the children, gave him a beautiful collection. Noni knitted Fritz a brand new pair of warm socks. His other socks had several holes in them. Noni, I have something special here for you. Fritz handed her a box wrapped in glittery paper with a big red bow on top. Noni opened the wrapping gingerly. This is so beautifully wrapped, Fritz. I wonder what amazing surprise must be inside. As Noni slowly opened the box, she threw her hands up in a happy expression of surprise. Tears of joy trickled from her eyes. Oh, Fritz, our wedding song, Noni explained. Two tiny dancers, a Noni and a Fritz, danced on a small pedestal, and the music played. Zwei Herzen in Dreiviertel Takt, a German waltz, which translated into English meant 2 hearts, 3/4 time. Noni and Fritz loved dancing the waltz. They danced as the family looked on. Petra presented Noni with a beautiful red scarf, hat, and mittens set that she had hand-knitted. Dear Noni, this is a gift to you from Delbus, Bela, Emma, and me. Noni attired herself with her beautiful new red knitted set, and Petra took her picture with Fritz. Appa Fritz, Bela shouted. Come, Emma, and see what Appa Fritz made for us. Look outside. Emma ran excitedly with Bela to discover a new sled, bigger and longer than the last one. It is red with our names, Bela and Emma, and it has bells on the ropes. When may we ride it? Emma asked. Noni, Fritz, Dobus, Petra, and the children had 2 very joyous but exhausting days of the traditional Christmas Eve celebration with family and friends. All the preparations, serving, entertaining, singing, and dancing. Then the attack of the orchestra and mediation with them outside Praise Church later that night after the candlelight service. Christmas Day followed without much sleep the night before, and more festivities as well as the anticipation of new community plans to be initiated with the orchestrals tomorrow and in the days ahead. Fritz and Dobus wondered, will the community's plans work or not? We cannot know for sure. What we do know is we must have faith, and if our plans are not realized, surely it will not be for lack of trying. The children had fallen asleep in their chairs. Dobus and Petra each gave them a gentle nudge and whispered it was time to go home. Noni said, why not let them spend the night here since Dobus and Fritz have the meeting in the morning? Petra and I will have lunch ready when you return. After lunch, the children will want to go sledding, trying out their Christmas sled on the mountain and back. Bela had almost fallen back to sleep again, but managed to get out the words. Anya, Noni, you've got the answer. Good idea. With that, Bela was out like a light again. Emma had already wandered into her bedroom with the first nudge. Dobus and Petra bid good night until they would return at 8 o'clock the next morning. Snow was falling outside, and it made for a very pretty and magical walk home for Dobus and Petra. The snow was still coming down on this frosty morning as Dobus and Fritz made their way in their heavy coats, warm knit hats, scarves, and gloves to Praise Church for the planning meeting with Pastor Olaf and the gnomes and orchestrals of the future Bill coming down. Pastor Olaf and Mrs. Schmecken, along with some of the ladies of Praise Church, had planned a surprise breakfast with assorted meats, sausages, cheese, and palanka, a fruity Hungarian drink, and traditional pastime with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Well, it certainly charmed the orchestrals as well as the gnomes. The meeting was going smoothly. Plans for the eastern section of the vast parkland to go to the orchestrals, and the gnomes would help them to build their homes, neighbor helping neighbor. Pastor Olaf reflected, what we help to build together and God sheds his light upon should be respected and never experience destruction. Everyone toasted and cheered. They would be ready to start work the next morning. Orchestrals and gnomes alike were enthused and laughing with each other. Now you know, as most stories go, there must be another glitch before the story and its characters could settle in happily ever after. And so, just as everything seemed to be going so amicably, in stomps Gregor, the grumpiest of all orchestrals. He is determined, coming late to the meeting and breakfast, to not like anyone or agree with any of their ideas, and especially to let everyone know he didn't enjoy the breakfast after he finishes his plateful. Yes, Gregor was all that and more. He helped himself to food and drink, did not interact with gnomes or orchestrals, and grunted or groaned at their ideas. Then he left. Fritz looked at Dobus, and Dobus looked at Mr. Olaf. They shrugged their shoulders. No one had met or spoken to this man before, except for Timmins. Timmins, it seems, is Gregor's estranged brother. Speaking to Timmins, Fritz and Dobus learned that as children, Timmins and Gregor were as close as any two brothers could be. But as fate would have it, Timmins fell in love with the same woman as Gregor. After Timmins and Sonia were engaged to be married, Gregor never spoke to his brother again, and so never learned that Sonia left the orchestrals for a calmer lifestyle, and the two were never married. Fritz and Dobus returned home and together watched Emma and Bela on their sled as they traveled up and down the mountain back of Papa Fritz's hovel. They couldn't stop thinking about Timmins and Gregor. How could we help to get the brothers together again, Dobus asked. Bela and Emma came down the mountain at the same time, left their sled momentarily, and Bela asked, Papa Fritz, Papa, I met a friend today while you were at Praise Church. His name is Tom, and he is from the orchestrals. His papa's name is Timmins. He asked to sled with us one day. Well, what do you know, marveled Dobus. God works in mysterious ways, doesn't he, Papa Fritz? Yes, indeed, Fritz responded. The next day, as gnomes and Farkas trolls were building homes together, Dobus spoke with Timmins about their sun sledding together, and Timmins agreed. You know, I wanted a son, but I never married. I alone adopted Tom. He means all the world to me. I'm happy he is friends with your son. I too am happy with the friendship of our sons, Dobus replied. Will we see you at church on Sunday? Oh yes, Timmins replied. Sunday came, and the church was filled. Gnomes and Farkas trolls all came together as one. Noni and Fritz, Dobus and Petra, Timmins, Bela, and Tom, Emma were seated together. As Pastor Olaf gave the sermon, there was a stirring of the congregation. The church doors opened suddenly, and Tom walked to the back of the church. He took his Uncle Gregor by the hand and walked forward to the front pew with him. Pastor Olaf concluded his sermon with a prayer. Noni approached the organ to play Blessed Be the Tie That Binds, and Fritz conducted the choir. Tom sat between Timmins and Gregor and nudged his father Timmins to reach out his hand to Gregor. Hesitantly, Timmins did, with a smile, and with a nudge from Tom to Gregor, Gregor returned the hand with a smile, no less. The members of the congregation were stunned, to say the least. What miracle had brought these two brothers together after so many years estranged? What had brought the gnomes and Farkas together in harmony? It seems that Pastor Olaf and little Tom had a discussion with major impact. Pastor Olaf concludes his service as the curtain falls on our story. And the Lord said, Bring the children to me, and let them lead the way. Go in peace this Christmas season, and hereafter. The end. And I wish you all a very happy Christmas in July, and here is Christy.
That was such a beautiful story.
Thank you.
I wish you all a very Merry Christmas in July. I hope you keep Christmas in your hearts all year long. And yeah, I'll be back soon. You can purchase our Christmas books, Westhampton Beach Christmas, A Christmas Heart, The Christmas Break. You can purchase them all on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. And I just want to thank you all for joining us.